this is your first pole of the season. Can we say finally?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's the 5th round. Honestly, I was a bit disappointed yesterday. Had, let's say, important expectations for myself. But I think it's more important that I learned from my mistakes yesterday and came back stronger. I think at the end we were able to do a really good job.
Will you try to repeat the podium finish at Spa?
Yeah, for sure. I think I had quite a good run in quali. We have a pace, we have opportunities, so we'll see what I can do with it.
So there we have it, fresh off the back of qualifying 2 this morning. We welcome you back to the FIA Formula Regional European Championship, as the championship now only becomes further more complicated, with the points gap shrinking. Nothing shrinking with the temperature in the air or on the track either. We've had a little bit of rainfall owing to the 41% humidity. It is going to be another stiff test for the drivers to adapt to. And fresh after yesterday, RSGP, the reigning champions as far as the Teams Championship is concerned, continue their reign supreme up at the very top after Yuki Sano managed to pull together a fantastic first victory after nestling in a first European pole position yesterday. He came very close to doing the same again, but it's only the second row for the Japanese talent with his teammate Rashid Al-Dahiri, as we heard in his interview with Dario, starting on pole position for the first time, and he becomes our 7th different pole sitter of the season. We're also looking ahead with 8 different race winners at the same time, and Rashid Al-Dahiri, despite taking 2 wins, both of them being sprints, he is now chasing his first main race victory this season. Is yet to have one and is very determined to focus in on that. The Mercedes junior driver moving out of Prema after a busy campaign last year that saw him finish 8th in the championship. He has brighter ambitions this season, but has Alexander Abakazava alongside him for MP Motorsport as well, who was furiously quick for MP Motorsport at the start of the day, looking to follow in the footsteps of twice race winner Seb Weldon, who starts further back. Yuki Sano, the hero from yesterday's first race of the weekend, hailing from Japan, runner-up in the Super Formula Lights Championship, has now come across to Europe and showing that he's just as quick on this side of the water. We have got Emanuele Olivieri as well, who was spectacular back at Monza and now makes up yet again 3 RSGP cars inside the top 4, just as they were at the end of race 1 yesterday, and they've done exactly the same ahead of race 2 today. A fantastic drone shot taking in the vast colour, the vibrance of this FIA Formula Regional European Championship grid. Francisco Macedo, Mace the ace, managing to pull together a fantastic P5 for Van Amersfoort Racing. It wasn't necessarily the same to be said for his teammates. Andrea Dupé, after speaking to him during the driver's signing window. And by the way, folks, yet again, the fans at Hungaroring, absolutely sensational. All coming across to celebrate these drivers, these future stars, all bidding to become the future in Formula 1. Of course, prior to that, jumping into the realms of FIA Formula 3 and FIA Formula 2, we have seen the success of Andrea Kimi Antonelli this season. Of course, part of this championship back in 2023, eventually becoming champion of this series before moving up to FIA Formula 2. And that's exactly what these drivers are going to be hoping that they can achieve. Also following in the footsteps of the likes of Gabriel Bortoletto, Isaac Hadjar as well, who was the rookie champion in this series back in 2021. Also for RSGP, lo and behold. So yes, the temperature's now a little bit warmer in comparison to this morning. We did have some rainfall at the start of the day. Grey clouds were smattered across the skies. It was 19 degrees in the air, which was the coolest we've seen it actually throughout the course of this week. So some adaptation had to be taken in from the drivers. Seb Weldon seemed well prepared for it, just doesn't know where the pace has gone really, and neither can, not many can find out either as to where their pace has gone. I mean, I had a similar conversation with Ken Nakamura Berta earlier on today, and incidentally, both he and Seb Weldon will be starting in P6 and P7 respectively. I caught them having a little chat with one another. They are rivals, but also good friends in the process. Had gargantuan battles in Italian F4 prior to coming here. Of course, Ken Nakamura Berta, Italian F4 champion, E4 champion, a Middle Eastern champion as well, which has really teamed him up nicely for an attack at this series championship as well in the FIA Formula Regional European Championship, but he is going to have stern contests. Let's take you through the starting grid. Ahead of race 2, Rashid El Dahiri for RAce GP on the front row and pole. It's MP Motorsports' Alexander Abakazava with an excellent performance in qualifying this morning, ahead of Yuki Sano, bidding for a second race win back-to-back. Emanuele Olivieri looking to return to the top as well, 4th place for RAce GP. 3 RAce GPs inside the top 4. Francisco Macedo makes the ace alongside the current championship contender Kei Nakamura Berta of Prema Racing. Sebastian Weldon in 7th place, also hunting the title for MP Motorsport. Alex Ninovic, the GB3 champion in P8, ahead of Reno Francot, who started dead last and didn't finish yesterday owing to some car trouble. Remember, he was disqualified from qualifying yesterday. No such trouble today. Saket Al-Maserji for G4 having a wonderful weekend, as is his teammate Marcus Sater alongside Jan Sharovsky of RPM down in P12. Kabir Anurag, Alpine Junior for ART alongside Gabriel Gomez for Rodin down in 14th on the 7th row, ahead of Aston Martin Junior Zenri Chi and Razor Seaworthen for Rodin. Dion Gauda, the rookie champion from last season, lines up alongside Thomas Stolchamanis for Prema Racing. And he's ahead of Andrea Dupé, who was not happy with his qualifying performance this morning. Work to be done as far as he's concerned. Miguel Costa having a good time with RPM, also looking for brighter results. Alexandre Munoz, one of the shining lights from Spa earlier on in this season, going from pole to victory, ahead of Salim Hanna, who went very close at Zandvoort, and Maximilian Popov, who was also a pole sitter at Spa as well, ahead of Giovanni Maschio. Rahim Alabai in 25th, ahead of Jules Roussel, with Noah Lyle, who comes in for his first weekend. Matteo Giacardi, who ventured onto the grass in yesterday's race 1, ahead of Kai Darianani and Andrea Kostic of Trident Motorsport in P30. So that signs off your grid. We're now about set, ready for race time. It's going to be very, very tight between all drivers concerned. It's R-Race, MP Motorsport, R-Race and R-Race. Thibaut de Merindol's team have been absolutely dominant around this circuit. It is certainly one of their marks on the calendar where they can really shine. And no question, that is something they're going to carry through once again, at least bid to at this point. Of course, the last driver to win was Yuki Sano yesterday, but in prior years, Tuka Tappinen going from lights to flag in sequential races in 2024. Enzo Dellini going from pole but not to victory, because Freddie Slater would steal away that victory after Enzo Dellini had a technical failure on his car and kept on slowing down on the run down through towards turn 12, if you remember, 12 months ago. Martin Stenshorn as well going from pole to victory back in 2023 and went on to win after Joshua Dufek managed to land pole position for Van Amersfoort Racing that same year in race 2, and Hadrian David all the way back in 2022 going from lights to flag. For Prema though, however, of course they were the first winners here at Budapest in the FIA Formula Regional European Championship, owing to Frederick Vesti, the Dane, managing to muster both race 1, race 2 and also a race 3 as well, and it was lights to flag on all occasions. And after that in 2019, Prema actually haven't won a race until last season, race 2, which was Freddie Slater, of course, who is now doing incredible things in FIA Formula 3, and also alongside his teammate and championship contender from last season in this series, Matteo De Parlo, who incidentally smashed it under the park today for Trident, as he continues to do so as well from last season. The cars now venturing off their grid spots, the formation lap now in full swing. 30 minutes plus 1 lap to take us through to the checkered flag in the very late in the day Budapest circuit, which is now starting to settle down a little bit. The heat's nowhere near as powerful as it was yesterday. It's calmed down relatively today. Packed grandstands as well, looking to enjoy this bountiful quality single-seater racing, which the FIA are championing, along with Actually Sport as well at the same time. It's truly grown immensely as the FIA Formula Regional European Championship, with some fantastic teams, with Rodin joining the club as well, after spending a great deal of time in the realms of the British Motorsport Championships at F4 level and onwards, and also looking to prepare drivers ready for their next steps on the FIA Formula 3 and FIA Formula 2 rostrum. And speaking of Rodin, there they are now. Of course, they have the likes of Alex Ninovic inside the top 10. Seaworthen was a shining light yesterday, nestling in a fantastic 3rd place, and managed to prevent Emanuele Olivieri, the eventual rookie race winner, from making it a trifecta of our Race GP cars on the top step of the podium. or indeed on the top steps, I should say, P1, 2 and 3. And there is the 73 of Olivieri now as we speak, the highest rookie in this classification right now. If it remains like this, it will be back-to-back rookie race wins, and of course that will add to his rookie championship, where he is currently a dominant force in that. Coming into the weekend, he arrived in on 85 points already, which is certainly quite the gulf in between both himself and Alexandre Munoz from ART, who's on 37. So we're talking nigh on 50. I think I make that 48 points, incidentally, between those two. So that is absolutely meteoric between them. But Munoz, a fantastic talent, and has already proven himself back at Spa in race 1, and after taking pole position for the start of that particular race. His last points finish, though, was indeed race 3 at Spa. Monza didn't deliver a single thing, nil poir for the ART driver. As now the drivers get settled, ensuring the car is up to temperature, means they're in more control of heating up those tyres. No concerns of it necessarily overheating, though this is a very high-deg circuit. I spoke to Razor Seaworthen through the course of the weekend. Not only, though, are they having to deal with the relentless heat and the high deg around this Hungaroring circuit. I mean, obviously Zandvoort is up there as well as a high deg track, but it's also the nature of the dust that is fragmented across this circuit. We've had quite an array of championships racing here this weekend. It's classic car weekend here at Budapest, and we're in for a classic race, I am sure. As now the lights go red. Rashid Al-Lahiri on the right, Alexander Abakazava on the left, as they now put pedal to the metal, and it's go! Go, 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 go! Great start for Rashid Al-Lahiri. Alexander Abakazava a little slow away, perhaps. We'll wait and see whether he can challenge. No, he can't, and also movements further back for Kei Nakamura Berta, who is now looking to try and consolidate his place. He's up into P4 now as he looks to go wheel to wheel. Here now with Alex Ninovic, who had a leap out of P8, and now on a charge as well with Seb Weldon also in the thick of it. Looks like he's forfeited a couple of places, but Alexander Abakzaba for MP Motorsport sitting in second, alive and well with Yuki Sano and Emmanuel Olivieri currently disputing at the moment, with in between them now Kei Nakamura Berta, who at the launch of his life bidding to return Prema to the top step for the first time this weekend. Wheel to wheel further back as now the two G4 racing cars go side by side. That is Sakir Al-Masergi and Marcus Sater, very much aligned and manacled together, just as they were back in race 1 yesterday. As they now bid to settle down and leave. Well, I say settle down, they still go wheel to wheel through the chicane. Still to the G4 cars are going at it. And after speaking to Marcus Sater earlier on during the driver signing, Adrian Munoz, the team boss at G4 Racing, certainly had a smile on his face after seeing the results come through yesterday. A bountiful amount of points going the team's way, and it does help them because they were rooted to the bottom. A wide moment there for a Van Amersfoort car. Now that's certainly a tricky moment there. We'll try and catch up with who that is. It looks like it was just in front of Seb Weldon. Might have been Francisco Macedo, actually, just making a bit of a mistake, and I believe I am absolutely right. And yes, I am. Macedo losing a fleet of places. Remember, starting inside the top 5. Well, it's not worked out for him, and now he's going to be under pressure because Seb Weldon is certainly not to be trifled with. A rapid driver who was pure class back at Zandvoort, leading to the back-to-back race wins for MP Motorsport in what was a historic weekend for them in their home nation, their home track. Is now the G4 racing car, this time of Sakir Al-Masergi, in the luminous paint on the halo and indeed the tips on the wings, etc., as they now head down through towards turn 2. There you can see Emmanuel Olivieri. Olivieri actually getting a wonderful start. P3 now as it stands, looking really strong. Incredible stuff from him. And managing to keep Nakamura Berta at bay, it would seem, as they now fly through over the crest once more, soon to reach the next right-hander. Al-Lahiri still in control. I'm not quite sure what's happened to Yuki Sano on our timing screen here. Just trying to see where he is on my timer, and I can't actually see him, and I'm not seeing any pit activity. I'm just wondering whether there's a transponder issue, perhaps, or whether something nefarious has happened to the winner from yesterday. Certainly looking across on my timing screen, I'm not seeing any updates as it stands. In fact, he's showing down in 28th place, so Sano clearly having a moment. I must have missed something myself. Of course, we'll find out what happened to him. But yes, down in 28th spot. It's allowed Olivieri now to jump inside the top 3 as a consequence. So Abakazava in second, separating 2 RHGP cars. It's 25 places lost there for Sarno, who was at the top of certainly the top of a mountain in terms of his optimism and happiness after that big win yesterday. Just goes to show how it can all come crashing down in a split second. It's never ideal. Remember, they do have the utilization of race mode, and you'll notice them applying it with the flashing lights on the rear of the car as well. As now Alexander Abakazava now makes his way out of turn 1, in behind Olivieri, getting closer, keeping him honest. In that third place at the moment, 4/10 behind the MP Motorsport driver, so that allows Aldahiri just to kick on here, 9/10 the gap. With Ken Nakamura-Roberta licking his lips at the prospect of potentially attacking the podium places. G4 Racing, who've been absolutely sensational, still mixing it up inside the top 10 with Al-Masergi in P9 and Sater in P10. They're ahead of Gabriel Gomez, Razor Seaworthen, who's up a place. He's into P12, ahead of Jan Sharovsky, the Aston Martin Junior, Zenri Chi, also there as well in the just outside the points-paying positions, ahead of Dion Gouda, the rookie champion from last year, with Thomas Stolchamanis in 16th, who's ahead of teammate Salim Hanna, the Colombian, who has been despondent this weekend, certainly hasn't shown the same level of pace that we witnessed back at Zandvoort, fresh off the back of his stints in FIA Formula 3 back at Austria. And it's always fabulous to see our young talents make their mark in higher echelons of the motorsport. That is the whole purpose of this brilliant championship. And not to mention many of the teams that compete in this series also holding prevalent footprints in those higher in the pyramid championships that lead to Formula 1 as well. Still 24 minutes and 50 to go, plus the 1 lap. Aldahiri now ticking off the 3rd lap, and now is outside of the scope by 1.3 seconds. So the slipstream now going to favour Olivieri, and there'll be no slipstream for Alexander Abakazava, whose stellar initial time, as they were the first group in qualifying to lay down the benchmarks. He was the only driver really to jump into that 1:37, but was put to the sword by Rashid Aldahiri, who had the better track conditions, because like I said at the top of the show, it wasn't as warm as it was yesterday here this morning. So it was down to the drivers to ensure that their compounds were up to temperature, and indeed it wasn't as if they soared off a cliff with track temperatures around 50 degrees through the course of Saturday. Certainly not that much here today. Just a little update concerning car 87. It's actually being investigated for a false start, everybody. That's Kai Darianani, for those who are wondering, the Trident driver. Razor Seaworthen fastest in the speed trap at the moment, so showing that that Rodin car is incredibly quick in a straight line. We just caught him there in our picture, chasing after Gabriel Gomez. Gomez, of course, with the red halo on his car. So they now make their way through turn 13. Ever so tricky, this corner, especially seeing as we've had GT racing here this afternoon, as well as touring cars, which was a very raucous affair. The marshals have taken the brush machines onto the circuit just to clear any debris and, of course, any gravel that has been left sprinkled across the track, because I know there was quite a few comments in the post-qualifying interviews and discussions in the paddock around a dirty circuit, which is always a challenge for the drivers to manage, as now the 2 G4s go at it. A late dive at the inside. There it has to be said from Marcus Sater. I'm going to challenge Sakir Al-Masergi, and that is a very clinical and well-managed manoeuvre. I'm sure Adrian Munoz was looking through his fingers, and a 5-second time penalty for Kai Darianani, no question, for the jump start that he was being investigated for. So he's been penalised now, and therefore will face the 5 seconds that will be added to his race time when the checkered flag comes down after 22 minutes or so and plus 1 lap here at Budapest. This is, of course, our final race of the weekend in our 2-race format as well. We will be reintroducing the triple race format at Imola, for example. It's something that's been brought back to the championship. It's something that we have seen at Budapest before. I mentioned the 2019 series, the Fastest lap taken by Rashid Al-Dahiri, confirmation of that, 1:41.177, and still growing the gap against Alexander Abagazaba, who is putting the work in place, though. He was purple for a split second in the middle sector, personal best regardless. The purple middle sector has now gone, incidentally, to Francisco Macedo, who forfeited places at the start of the race, with Reno Francot just in front of him, who is recovering after the disappointment of not being able to keep the qualifying time that he laid down from Q1, because he was essentially disqualified and had to start from the back of the grid, and due to damage on the car, they had to bring it into the pits for an early retirement, not completing 90% of the race, therefore he was not classified. As now we see some side-by-sides further back. Zenri Chi swapping all over the back of the RPM of Jan Sharovsky as they come down towards turn one. The Aston Martin Junior, brilliant manoeuvres, swapping all over the back of Jan Sharovsky, selling the dummy lefts and rights, and a lock-up there as well. Further up from Kean Nakamura, Berta. Zenri Chi is still wheel-to-wheel with Sharovsky, who refuses to go down without a fight. Swapping to the inside here, the RPM. Keith Donegan's team chasing big points. Had high hopes coming into this round as they now come up towards turn 4 at the top of the crest. The two G4 racing cars skipping through and onto the curbs. That was Seb Weldon getting a little bit wide and in territory that you don't really want to be speeding in, because that will give you an uncomfortable run on the route through towards turn 5. They may have yet handed an olive branch to the string of cars that are waiting to take your spot, and G4 Racing have certainly proven to be stern competitors this weekend and are not afraid to battle against one another. Clearly Marcus Sater believing he is the faster between he and Sakir Al-Maserji. And there may be some that have that same opinion, though I gotta say, Al-Maserji has been impressive this weekend, especially after going fastest in FP2, coming through the course of the collective test and then later free practice. It's certainly become apparent that they have found something in their cars, because in recent rounds we have finally seen the points come through for them. They were showing some improved efforts back at Monza. As we now watch Alexander Abagazaba still trying to keep Emanuele Olivieri at bay. Of course, Olivieri, no stranger to winning championships. He's a proven talent. More lockups now being lifted as Alex Ninovic this time sees smoke flicker off his tyres. As we now take a look at the gap between our top two in the timing screen, and the delta has been brought down now, it would seem, with Alexander Abagazaba setting a personal best inside the first sector. Marcus Sater making an error coming out of turn 4 in towards turn 5, taking just as wide a line as Seb Weldon did. The only difference was Seb Weldon committed to the curb and therefore had an uncomfortable run with the Tatas 326 chassis. This new design, this new car that debuted at the start of the year, this new gen that has proven to be a vibrant success in this series, has given drivers extra power. Also at the same time, they can still utilize race mode, which is the new era of the push-to-pass system that we've seen adopted in seasons gone by. And on top of that, the nature of the rotation of the car as well on the Pirelli tires, they can maneuver it more effectively. It allows for fantastic racing and wheel-to-wheels, and we've seen a few of them already. Obviously G4 giving us an exhibition of that earlier on. I want to be a bit careful. Razor Seaworthen up into P11 has managed to overtake Gabriel Gomez, so Rodin now swapping places with those two drivers. And Razor Seaworthen actually on the rise too. Of course, remember P3 in yesterday's race, and he's now on the cusp of breaking inside the top 10. So if Sakir Al-Maserji is not careful, he could be in trouble here. It was a 1:41.123, a personal best over the last lap for Razor Seaworthen, and he was 7/10 quicker than Sakir Al-Maserji. He's got Marcus Sater for company, his teammate, as we so mentioned. Those two already going at it, as we've also mentioned and seen. And then in front of them, Sebastian Weldon behind Van Amersfoort, Francisco Macedo, the two Dutch teams line astern with two very fast drivers. Macedo having a fantastic weekend so far, consistently inside that top 10 contention, battling for those points. Ken Nakamura-Berta now moving out of shot, trying to hunt down after Emanuele Olivieri. Fastest lap last time out as well for Alexander Abakazava. As now we see, again, running wide, Seb Weldon, trying to use every ounce of this racetrack. As the young man from St. Petersburg. Of course, leading the championship coming into this Hungaroring round, and the catalyst for that being that Zandvoort round that weekend, which saw him amass 4 podiums inside his first 5 races this season. Missing out in the sprint, of course, back at Red Bull Ring in race 2, the reverse grid scenario. And that was a very volatile affair, wasn't it, that weekend, if you remember rightly. But these drivers adapting very well to this new car. Of course, many of them coming through the realms of Italian F4, where, of course, we witnessed Ken Nakamura-Berta lift the title aloft, and, of course, we saw Weldon and Ken Nakamura-Berta actually knocking 7 bells out of one another back then, too. Very much the class of their respective fields. And now they take their rivalry to the circuits here in the FIA Formula Regional European Championship, but there are many other protagonists that have, as of recent, raised their heads, and RHGP happy to enter their drivers into the fold. But they've done a masterful job in terms of the Teams Championship of our race. Just their sheer consistency has paid off, and Rachid Al-Dahiri and Emanuele Olivieri have certainly been an important factor in that, with them coming into the weekend 3rd and 4th in the championship, with Yuki Sano then eventually landing his first win after landing his first European pole, which at the close of yesterday saw him move on to 55 points, which sees him slot in behind Salim Hanna in the championship, so effectively moving him into P7 in the championship, Yuki Sano. So that was such an important victory, but unfortunately for Sano, owing to an issue, has seen himself fall down, and oh my goodness, Weldon saw him going slowly, and he's pulled over to the outside, and we have seen him overextend a few occasions. Whether he has done too much damage to the car and has been forced to bring it to a halt, I'm not quite sure, but that looks like a very sorry looking MP Motorsport machine. The Tata 326 being brought to the side of the racetrack. Disaster for MP, disaster for Seb Weldon, the championship leader. It looks like he's out of the race, and that just leaves his teammate Alexander Abakazava inside the top 10. Of course, they do still have Zenri Chi as well, still racing at the moment out on track. Of course, the Aston Martin Junior. And there is Seb Weldon. It's not been his weekend. One to forget, that's for sure. The qualifying was never right, and he was very keen to admit that. The Andretti Junior will no doubt return. But this championship now has just got even tighter, with our race now providing 2 protagonists inside the top 3 that will be scoring big points. And can I just say, Olivieri as well as Rachid Al-Dahiri have been so consistent. I mean, put it this way, Olivieri, I don't think has been outside of the top 4 at all so far. If it stays like this in the last, well, in 4 of the last 5 races, he's been inside the top 4, winning one of them as well at the same time. Not to mention the 18 points he scooped up for the P2 in race 1 at Monza. It has been a magnificent weekend for him, and now Alexander Abakazava has got Olivieri now for company. The rookie championship leader looking to deliver yet another 1-2 for the French team. And Thibaut de Merindol, I'm sure, willing on his Italian talent. Onwards and upwards here at Hungaroring, all over the back of MP Motorsports. Alexander Abakazava, who is now one-legged inside this top 10 after the departure of Seb Weldon in this race. A sorry sight for them, and a sheer contrast of emotions, I am sure, to what we saw back in round 2. They're just going to have to get themselves sorted out, ready for a return to Paul Ricard. And oh my goodness, that's a Prema. That's a Prema. Now, it's not Ken Nakamura-Berta, I don't think, because he is still holding on to 4th right now. I'm just looking across my screen, everybody. Salim Hanna still in 14th. So is that Stolchamanis who has gone off? I think that is Thomas Stolchemanis. The safety car has been deployed. I'll keep you guys posted, all of you at home. It is Stolchemanis. Thomas Stolchemanis out of the race. Rear suspension damage for the Prema driver. And that is heartbreaking for him. He was the highest Prema performing in yesterday's race. He finished 5th at the close of race 1 this weekend. Well, it turns out the result is going to be quite the opposite this time. No points scored, and in fact a DNF for Stolchemanis. That'll be heartbreak for his fans as well. Likewise, the Latvian, who finished 4th in the F4 Middle Eastern Championship last year, competing in Italian F4 at the same time 2 years ago. And the F4 Southeast Asian Championship 3 years ago. 18 years of age from Ropasi in Latvia. And his weekend has come to a grisly end, much like it has for Seb Weldon. Absolute disaster for them. And it does mean we're now down to just 28 cars out on the track as the crane now maneuvers the Prema out of harm's way. It was in a relatively safe spot nonetheless, just very deep off the circuit. But of course we do have to observe the safety measures here for the driver's welfare. And now behind the safety car with 10 minutes plus 1 lap to go. Let's give you a rundown of how our classification currently looks. Rashid Al-Lahiri inside 0.5 of a second ahead of Alexander Abakazava, with Emanuele Olivieri 3rd place, our race 1 and 3, with an MP Motorsport stranded in between. Kei Nakamura Berta, who will now be right on the rear of Olivieri. Things just got interesting for Prema, because whilst of course they've lost 1 car, they've got their championship contender Kei Nakamura Berta now in touching distance of Emanuele Olivieri. So the 3-time championship winner of both Italian F4, E4, and then on top of that, his efforts in the Middle East, Kei Nakamura Berta can now look to take full advantage of Seb Weldon's departure out of this race and try and maximise his points offering. And he does have the GB3 champion Alex Ninovic for company, Rino Frankot, who is the hero for CL Motorsports, winning race 3 at Spielberg, which is of course the track where he made his FIA Formula Regional European Championship debut last year. He's come on a long way, Rino Frankot, but showed a lot of promise in his first runs in this series. He's currently ahead of Francisco Macedo, who is still sat in the points for Van Amersfoort Racing. Safety car in this lap, and the plug has been pulled here for Rashid Al-Lahiri, and he's going to try with his foot to the floor to break away from Alexander Abakazava. Remember, that gap once was beyond a second. It was around a second and a half almost, and Abakazava now has a chance for another go at Rashid Al-Lahiri as they put pedal to the metal for the 2nd time in this race now. Olivieri in 3rd as well, with Kei Nakamura Berta hovering all over his tail. No moves yet inside the top 3, but yet again defensive manoeuvre this time from Olivieri, and Kei Nakamura Berta was caught unawares. Alex Ninovic very nearly pouncing on the opportunity. Narrowly missing out there, Ninovic. Kei Nakamura Berta looked like he was just reacting a little bit too late as the 2 G4 cars very nearly touched coming through turn 2. That was Alma Sergi on the back of Marcus Sater, with Seaworthen now inside the top 10. So Razor Seaworthen, who not too long ago was operating in the P13 realm, well, now he's inside the top 10 and pursuing after the G4 racing cars. And dare I say, Gabriel Gomez, his Rodin teammate, looking to deliver 2 Rodin cars to join Ninovic to make it 3 cars inside the top 10. That is indeed possible. Every point counts towards your championship hopes and indeed dreams in this series. Every point gold dust. And here at Budapest, this tight circuit that does offer a lot of reward, but at the expense of perhaps a lot of risk. We see Aldahiri lead the train through the final sector, and we've got side-by-sides elsewhere. Yuki Sano on a recovery mission around the outside of Rahim Alabai, and that is a move for 21st place for Yuki Sano. Very nearly Alabai losing out to Maximilian Popov, the Trident driver on the move, who was, of course, racing against Olivieri as well in Italian F4, for example. The 17-year-old, who was also in Italian F4 last season as well as 2024. Well versed to single-seater racing, and here up the inside, Prema on the move against Zenri Chi, and it is Salim Hanna, the Colombian, who moves into P12. Great move for him, but it's still wheel-to-wheel on the run down through towards turn 2, inside line, a lock up there for Salim Hanna, the Colombian. Now, has he recovered? That's the big question. We do see him, he's gone tight, coming through turn 3. Now that might affect his exit, coming up through towards turn 4. Oh, wait and see, oh no, he's gone off! Oh, he's gone off! Prema losing 2 cars, and the misery for the Italian team at Hungaroring continues. The wins record not in their favour. They've just seen 2 cars barrel out of the race. And in fact, it was contact. By the looks of it, it looked like Zenri Chi had gone into the back. From our perspective, of course, we haven't got a side-on view to see clearly. The safety car is out again, folks, but judging from what we saw, and I appreciate it was head-on as we were looking at him coming down the hill, Salim Hanna, the nose cone clearly broken, and definitely some front wishbone damage on the car as well, with the suspension looking well and truly out of sorts, the front wing missing. It's just really been the cherry on the cake this weekend for Salim Hanna. He was so disappointed with qualifying yesterday, and indeed qualifying today as well. The race didn't go to plan on Saturday, and just a thumbs up to the marshal, obviously letting him know he's okay. Obviously great to see Salim Hanna out of the car first and foremost, but like I said, it really has been the, again, I use the term insult to injury quite a lot in motorsport, but it is true. And unfortunately for Salim Hanna, who comes back fresh off the, well, fresh return from his stint in FIA Formula 3 at Red Bull Ring, well, this is not a welcome return to the championship for him. And yes, definitely a push from Zenri Chi. The Aston Martin Junior in the back, and I can only imagine the stewards are going to be taking a dim view at that one. Salim Hanna out of the race, and that is 2 Premas out here in race 2, leaving only their star supremo, Williams Jr., Keihan Nakamura Berta, 4th in the classification, in touching distance of R-Race GP's Emanuele Olivieri. The rivalry that Prema and R-Race have had over the years has truly been astonishing, and obviously with R-Race lifting the team's title for the first time last season, becoming only the 3rd different team to win in the FIA Formula Regional European Championship, that being the Teams Championship after Prema's run of 3 championships back-to-back-to-back after ART won it in 2021. Of course, Prema winning it back in 2019 and 2020. And who can blame them after fantastic visits from the likes of Frederic Vesti and Gianluca Petikov the following year. But this is certainly not the weekend they would have had in mind. They would have looked to probably continue on from what Freddie Slater managed to accomplish a year ago. And unless Keihan Nakamura Berta has something to say about it, it doesn't look like we're going to be seeing it. But we'll wait and see. A lot can happen. 3 minutes left to go. The incident involving cars 55 and 60 is under investigation. So that, obviously 55 and 60 of Thomas Stolchemanis and Dion Gouda from Van Amersfoort Racing, the reigning rookie champion, being investigated by race control. So we'll let you know what comes of that. Obviously Stolchemanis out of the race. He was the first Prema to go. We lost Salim Hanna just now, hence the safety car we are now under. Consequently, both safety cars have been for Prema DNFs. But we'll have to wait and see what happens to Zenri Chi, because he is in touching distance of the top 10, albeit currently a car stands in between him and Razor Seaworthen, that being Seaworthen's teammate Gabriel Gomez. Both Rodins are looking to jump in as well, and the car 55 is getting a 10-second time penalty, folks. So that is Dion Gouda receiving a 10-second time penalty. And we can only fathom that was due to the contact and the eventual DNF of Thomas Stoltschemanis. So there we have it. That's our latest update. And just an update on Dion Gauda's race. He currently sits in P14, and he will be in absolute free fall due to that, because naturally the grid has, well, certainly the cars have condensed somewhat due to the safety car, so I can only imagine that's going to send him pirouetting down through to the bottom echelons of our classification. But we're now down 3 cars, and with the time whittling down, I'm not sure how much racing we're going to get now before the checkered flag comes out. In fact, we may not see them cross the line in race trim unless we do get one final lap. We do have the additional after the timer does tick to 0, but dare I say, that will be the next lap. So it looks like we will be finishing under safety car, I think, and I will get confirmation from the stewards before we make that absolutely clear to you all. But as I would understand it, based on how the timer looks, it definitely looks like RHGP are going to be celebrating yet another victory, and Rashid Al Dahiri's first main race win after winning 2 sprint races out of 2 sprints we have already had this season. Of course, we were due to have one at Spa, which was rained off. Black and white flag has been waved for car 8. That is Jan Sharovsky, and that is regarding track limits, so it's abusing the boundaries a little bit too much. His RPMs, Jan Sharovsky, the Polish driver, here this weekend, looking to deliver a strong result, featured in Group B ahead of the 2 qualifying sessions we've had over the weekend. 17-year-old from Rossozisha in Poland, finishing 6th in the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship earlier this season with RPM. Made 2 appearances in this series last year. Was actually a runner-up in the Euro Cup 4 Winter Series in 2025, 12 months ago. I will tell you that the Turn 3 incident involving cars 28 and 88 has been noted. That being the collision. So that's Henry Chi and Salim Hanna. I'd imagine the stewards are going to look at it after the race. So please keep your eyes peeled to the FIA Formula Regional European Championship website and the social media channels and networks, everybody. Because you'll be hearing all the breaking news coming out of the series in terms of any late decisions that do come through. Of course, we've had the joy and the presence of Herbie Blash this weekend, who has had such a lengthy legacy in single-seater racing, and most notably Formula One, working with the likes of Brabham and also the likes of Bernie Eccleston, and working at the same time with Graham Hill and Frank Williams, and helping embrace and tutor up new race stewards and race directors, etc. I have got confirmation, folks. Of course, it comes as no surprise because we are on the final lap. We will be finishing behind the safety car, so it's a 3rd win of the season for Rashid Al Dahiri, albeit 2 sprints and 1 main race. A massive congratulations to RHGP as they blanket the weekend of race wins after Yuki Sano took the big prize yesterday. It's Alexander Abakazava who will also feature on the podium and equals his best performance this season, finished 2nd back at Spa in race 3. Well, he'll stand tall on the 2nd step of the podium for a 2nd time this season. So still plenty of points going MP Motorsports' way, but what this does mean is the gulf between Ps1 and Ps2 in the Teams Championship coming into the weekend is only going to grow, because, of course, our race were leading the team standings on 219 points coming into the weekend. I can tell you that the gap to MP coming into Hungary was actually only 7 points. It was very, very narrow indeed. But that gap has just been enlarged immensely, owing to the performances from Al Dahiri, Sano and Olivieri, who will stand on the podium, not just for a rookie's race win this time, but for also P3. Nakamura Berta not on the podium. In fact, Prema podiumless here this weekend with Rodin's Alex Ninovic, down in 5th place. As they make their way out of the chicane, turn 6 and 7. The safety car will channel these cars through the latter realms of this Hungaroring circuit for the final time this season. It's been an action-packed visit. Plenty more to come. Trips pending to Paul Ricard, Imola, Hockenheimring, which is where we will end our season on the 11th of September to the 13th. But of course, July is where it's at with a trip to Paul Ricard. Le Castellet awaits the 30 drivers in the FIA Formula Regional European Championship as Aldehiri now brings the train around to turn 13 for the final time. After finishing 8th last season, he's well and truly in the championship hunt. He is not far away, knocking on the door of Seb Weldon and indeed Ken Nakamura Berta, who, whilst he's on the precipice of a podium down in P4, is going to be Rashid Aldehiri, former Prema driver and now main race winner in the FIA Formula Regional European Championship. It's his 3rd race win overall. He will stand tall on the top step of the podium with Alexander Abexava with his 2nd P2 finish of the season. Rashid Aldehiri, though, will be the one celebrating. His teammates will join him. Emanuele Olivieri back on the podium, dominant in the rookie classification. And it's a P3 finish for the young man, to coincide with the one he achieved back at Zandvoort in race 1. Remember, he also finished 2nd back at Monza. That was the precursor to the eventual victory in race 3 as well. Picked up a very impressive 13 points after achieving 4th and then the fastest lap through the course of the race. Incidentally, we can talk about the fastest lap in this race, and that went to Alexander Abexava. Let's take you through the final race classifications, the final results, or the provisional results at least. Rashid Aldehiri, your race winner for a 3rd time this season. Alexander Abexava in 2nd, ahead of Emanuele Olivieri in 3rd. Ken Nakamura Berta in 4th, the sole Prema to finish, ahead of Alex Dinovic, ahead of Rino Frankot, Francisco Macedo, ahead of Marcus Sater. Sakir Al-Masergi making it 2 G4 racing cars once again inside the top 10. They score points, as does Razor Seaworthen of Rodin, ahead of his teammate Gabriel Gomez. Zenri Chi, who is being investigated after the race for the crash with Salim Hanna. Jan Sharovsky, then Kabir Anorak, the Alpine Junior, finishes ahead of Miguel Costa, and then Andrea Dupé. Noah Lal in his first weekend, ahead of Alexandra Munoz. Yuki Sano recovering to P19, ahead of Rahim Alabai. Maximilian Popov in 21st. Giovanni Maschio, Jules Roussel, Matteo Giaccardi, Andrea Kostic. Near enough last of the running cars, ahead of Kai Darianani and Dion Gouda, who suffered that contact and eventual penalty, which saw him drop down the order after the departure of Thomas Stoltz-Chamanis. So there we go. That's the end of the Hungarian weekend, the 2nd race in the books. All eyes will now be transfixed on Paul Ricard. Le Castellet awaits. A very flat circuit as the marshals stand to observe and direct the cars through towards the pit lane. And there'll be Rashid Aldehiri who will be the first to make his way in. Of course, Parc Fermé awaits, where you'll find his P1 spot. And I'm sure the celebrations are going to be felt here. His father is here this weekend, very regularly. Hardly ever misses an opportunity to see his son race. They're very passionate about their racing. And with Yas Heat emblazoned on the RAce GP car, he replaces the steering wheel back into the column, inside the chassis, and it's victory number 3 for Rashid Aldehiri. First main race win. RAce GP in Dreamland. Thibaut de Merindol's team have blanketed the weekend for race wins here after Yuki Sano's success yesterday. And there is Rashid Aldehiri's father, who immediately comes across to hug him. It's been a masterful display from this man. And here is Alexander Abakazava. Take nothing away from him. He deserves all the applause after an incredible qualifying this morning. Could have very easily actually held on to pole position. We saw that Group A took pole for yesterday's race. Can you imagine if the same thing happened ahead of this one? But nothing was going to stop Aldahiri. I spoke to him coming into the weekend, and whilst, of course, he was delighted to receive the reverse sprint race victories, he said to me, there's nothing quite like winning a main race. Receives the Pirelli cap from Flavio. And will wear it with pride. Well, delighted, and will pose for a photograph, the winning photograph. The Mercedes Junior, showing exactly why he is a class act in this championship. Let's take a look at the highlights from a very action-packed and a race filled with thrills and spills. Now there is Yuki Sano. He actually stalled off the line. I personally missed that. I apologize to the viewers at home. I was so focused on the front end to see who got a great start. And indeed, Yuki Sano, a really poor start, just essentially stalled off the line. In fact, his car was still pretty much there. So he had toppled right down the order, had to recover. Obviously, the safety car helping him out later on as well. Obviously, that opened up the door for what looked to be Emanuele Olivieri to then move up inside the podium places, but it was a furious battle right at the very beginning with cars jostling for position. Certainly various drivers taking full opportunity of turn one, much like Marcus Sater did up the inside of teammate Sakir Al-Masergi. And this was the moment that saw Seb Weldon out of the race after his car came to a grinding halt, just trickling onto the grass. And then we saw later on the contact between Zenri Chi and Salim Hanna that saw the Prema out of the race. And it wasn't the only Prema out of the race either, because Thomas Dolcemanis made it. 2 Prema cars DNFing, but nothing stops former Prema man and now current RHGP man Rashid Aldahiri winning his 3rd race of the season and his 1st main race victory. Our attentions now divert to the podium, where we will now celebrate our top 3 drivers, where our race once again will have 2 drivers representing them on the top steps, and it'll only be 3 because Emanuele Olivieri will be accepting both the rookie trophy, the rookie winning trophy, and the 3rd place trophy at the same time.
The winner is from the UAE, Rashid Aldahiri.
First up, Rashid Aldahiri, your race winner. What a visit for this young man, 18 years of age, from Abu Dhabi, runner-up in the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship earlier this year, the precursor to this campaign. Alexander Abakazava standing on the 2nd spot for MP Motorsport. Emanuele Olivieri in 3rd place. The winning team, RHGP, celebrating along with their 2 drivers. And a courtesy handshake with Alexander Abakazava as we now listen to the UAE national anthem. Well, after finishing 8th in the championship last season, clearly Rashid Aldahiri keen to make his mark in European racing, to follow suit with what he's achieved after being a runner-up in the Middle East on 2 occasions over the last 2 to 3 years. He accepts a winning trophy for the 3rd time this campaign. But Alexander Abakazava lifting the P2 trophy for the 2nd time this year. MP Motorsport, whilst they lost Seb Weldon in the initial stage of the race, they can at least celebrate Alexander Abakazava and Emanuele Olivieri, who I still think has much more to come in the final rounds of the championship. We still have 3 rounds to bring you, folks. As our race celebrates, they are dominant forces here at Budapest, and that looks like it's not going to stop with the winning rookie trophy also being presented to Emmanuel Olivieri, walking away with that title, isn't he? What a talent he truly is. And folks, it won't be long before we are back in business. As I said, Paul Ricard, Imola, Hockenheim to come. We next look towards Le Castellet. That'll be coming up on July 17th. But as the cameras are now on show, the drivers posing for photos, they look forward to what's ahead as the sun beats down towards the end of the day. We will see you next time at Le Castellet, folks. But until then, it's goodbye.